Most fans think a World Cup contender is just a team with famous players. That sounds right. It also misses the point because the World Cup is not usually won by the team with the loudest names. It is won by the team whose talent, structure, path, pressure, timing, and luck all survive the same month. So when people ask which teams can win the World Cup, the simple answer is easy. Argentina, France, Brazil, England, Spain, Portugal, Germany, maybe the Netherlands, maybe one dangerous outsider. But the real question is not who looks strong on paper. The real question is which team is built for the tournament itself. Because a league season rewards consistency. A Champions League campaign rewards squad depth, tactical control, and knockout experience across many months. But the World Cup is different. It compresses everything. It takes players from different clubs, drops them into national teams, adds travel, adds pressure, adds a draw, adds unfamiliar opponents, then asks them to solve problems immediately. That is why the World Cup creates strange truths. A team can have the best striker in the world and still lose control in midfield. A team can dominate the ball and still disappear after one counterattack. A team can look ordinary for 80 minutes, then become terrifying because one player finds one moment. So before ranking the contenders, we need a framework. Talent creates the ceiling and system creates the floor. The draw creates the road. Pressure decides who can walk it. That is the hidden map of every World Cup contender. Start with Argentina. Argentina are not just contenders because they won in 2022. They are contenders because they showed the most important tournament skill a national team can have. They survived chaos. In Qatar, Argentina lost their opening match to Saudi Arabia. For most teams, that kind of shock breaks the story. It creates panic. It turns every press conference into an emergency. It makes every pass feel heavier. But Argentina adjusted. They found rhythm. They found roles. They found emotional control inside a tournament that had already tried to throw them out. That matters, because winning a World Cup is not only about playing beautiful football. It is about absorbing damage without losing identity. Argentina had Lionel Messi, but the deeper lesson was not just Messi. It was the way the team protected the game around him. Midfield runners carried pressure. Defenders accepted duels. The structure gave the genius enough space to become decisive. That is what makes Argentina dangerous again. They understand tournament suffering. But here's the twist. The champion always carries a different kind of weight. Everyone studies you. Everyone wants to beat you. Every match becomes a referendum on whether the magic is still alive. Argentina's question is not whether they know how to win. They do. The question is whether the same emotional engine can burn again when the world has already seen the trick. Then there's France. France are the modern model of depth. When people say depth, they usually mean having good substitutes. But in tournament football, depth means something more specific. It means a team can lose a player, change a role, alter a game state, and still remain recognizable. France have been one of the clearest examples of that. They won the World Cup in 2018. They reached the final again in 2022. Across that period, they showed a pattern that is extremely rare in international football. They did not need one perfect version of themselves. They could win in different ways. Sometimes they attacked quickly. Sometimes they defended deep. Sometimes they gave the ball away and waited for space. Sometimes their individual quality solved games that their control did not. That is why France feels so difficult to eliminate. They do not need the match to be pretty. They need the match to stay alive long enough for their athletes, finishers, and decision makers to tilt it. But France also show the danger of having too much talent. Talent can stretch a team in many directions. One player wants transition. Another wants possession. One fullback wants to attack. One midfielder needs protection. One forward wants space behind. Another wants the ball to feet. The more weapons a team has, the more the coach has to choose what the team actually is. That is the French puzzle. Their ceiling may be the highest, but the World Cup does not hand trophies to ceilings. It asks if the floor holds when the match becomes uncomfortable. Now look at Brazil. Brazil are always contenders, but not because of nostalgia. They are contenders because Brazil produce attacking solutions that most countries cannot manufacture. In a World Cup, That matters because knockout matches often become narrow. Teams defend deeper, space disappears. The game slows down. One defender blocks the central lane. Another protects the box. The match begins to feel locked. Brazil usually have players who can unlock it without asking permission from the system. A dribble, a sudden combination, a winger beating two defenders, a forward turning a half chance into a real chance. That kind of individual creativity is not decoration. It is a tournament weapon. But Brazil's modern question has been balance. Can the team protect itself while chasing beauty? Can it control transitions, which means the moments immediately after losing the ball? Can it turn attacking talent into a stable tournament machine? The 2014 World Cup gave Brazil one of football's most painful case studies. The 7-1 defeat to Germany was not only a scoreline, it became a warning about emotion, structure, and what happens when a team carries a nation's expectation without enough tactical safety underneath it. That match still shadows every discussion about Brazil. Not because Brazil lacked talent. They never lacked talent. Because the World Cup punishes imbalance brutally. If Brazil solve the balance problem, they can beat anyone. If they do not, the same talent that makes them thrilling can also leave spaces behind it. England are different. For years, England's problem was not talent, it was translation. How do you take players who are stars in different Premier League systems and turn them into one national team? That is harder than it looks. Club football trains players every day. National teams meet in short windows. A club coach can rehearse patterns for months. A national coach often has days. So England's real challenge is not only whether they have elite players. They do. The challenge is whether those players become a clear team quickly enough. Recent tournaments showed England becoming more stable. A World Cup semifinal in 2018. A European Championship final in 2021. Another deep run in 2024. Those results changed the psychology around the team. England stopped being only a story about disappointment. They became a story about almost, and almost is powerful. It means the structure is close enough to believe in. It also means the pressure gets sharper. Because once a team proves it can reach the late stages, the public stops asking if it can compete. The public asks why it has not finished the job. England's contender case is built on squad quality, set-piece strength, Premier League intensity, and enough attacking talent to hurt anyone. Their risk is game control. Can they manage the ball against elite possession teams? Can they manage fear when the match reaches the last 20 minutes? Can they choose bravery at the exact moment the tournament asks for it? That is England's World Cup exam. Spain are the opposite kind of contender. Spain do not usually scare you first with chaos. They scare you with control. Control means more than possession. It means using the ball to decide where the match is played, who has to run, who gets tired, and which spaces become available. Spain's golden era from 2008 to 2012 turned that idea into one of the greatest international runs in football history. European champions, world champions, European champions again. That was not random. It was a football worldview. But modern Spain are not simply a copy of that era. They have had to become quicker, wider, younger, and more direct at times. The question is whether they can combine the old Spanish control with enough cutting edge to finish knockout matches. Because possession without penetration becomes a beautiful waiting room. You keep the ball. You move the opponent. But if you do not create enough danger, one counterattack can erase everything. Spain's contender case is intellectual. They can make opponents chase. They can make emotional matches feel technical. They can make good teams look impatient. Their risk is efficiency. Can control become goals? Can dominance become survival? Can the prettiest system still win when the game gets ugly? Portugal are one of the most fascinating contenders because their talent pool is enormous. But their identity question is never simple. Portugal have elite players across the pitch, creators, finishers, fullbacks, midfielders who can pass, press, and shoot. On paper, that looks like freedom. In reality, it creates choices. Does Portugal build around control? Does Portugal build around transitions? Does Portugal prioritize experience, or does it lean fully into the next generation? This is where national teams become political in the football sense. Not politics as government. Politics as power, status, legacy, hierarchy, and the emotional meaning of selection. Portugal won Euro 2016 by becoming pragmatic. They did not need to be the most beautiful team in the tournament. They needed to survive moments, defend key zones, and take their chances. That lesson matters, because Portugal's best version may not be the version that tries to fit every star into the same 11. It may be the version that accepts sacrifice. The World Cup does not care how impressive the bench looks. It cares whether the 11 on the pitch understand the same problem at the same time. Portugal can win if the roles become clear. They can fall short if the talent becomes a debate instead of a machine. Germany are the memory that never fully disappears. Even when Germany are not at their peak, everyone knows what the shirt means. 4 World Cups, a history of tournament resilience. A football culture built around structure, intensity, and late-stage belief. But history does not press, pass, or defend set pieces by itself. Germany's modern challenge has been turning identity back into reality. The 2014 team that beat Brazil 7-1 and won the final against Argentina looked like the perfect fusion of academy development, tactical clarity, and elite mentality. But after that, Germany experienced the other side of tournament football. Early exits, uncertainty, questions about whether the system still produced the same certainty. That is the danger of a great football nation. The past gives confidence, but it can also hide problems. Germany's contender case depends on whether they can reconnect their pieces. Can they press as a unit? Can they protect the space behind midfield? Can they convert possession into pressure instead of sterile passing? If they do, Germany are never just another team. They become the opponent nobody wants in a knockout round. The Netherlands live in a strange space. They are not always placed in the first line of favorites, but they are rarely harmless. Dutch football has a deep tactical culture. The country has produced some of the most influential ideas in the sport, especially around space, pressing, positional play, and the relationship between defenders and attackers. But the Netherlands also carry the weight of being close without winning. Finals in 1974, 1978, and 2010. Great teams, great players. No World Cup trophy. That history matters because it turns every strong Dutch run into a philosophical question. Is this finally the team that converts ideas into the ultimate prize? Modern Dutch teams often have defensive quality, technical midfielders, and enough attacking threat to trouble elite opponents. Their best version is organized, physical, and tactically flexible. Their problem is usually the final leap. Do they have enough goals? Do they have enough cruelty in the box? Do they have the one player who turns a balanced knockout match into a Dutch win? That is why the Netherlands belong in the contender conversation, even when they are not the headline. Now come the outsiders, and this is where most fans make a mistake. They treat outsiders like a separate category from contenders. But World Cups are built to create outsiders. The draw can open a path. A favorite can collapse. A goalkeeper can have the month of his life. A young player can arrive early. A defensive system can become impossible to break. Croatia showed this in 2018 by reaching the final, and again in 2022 by reaching the semifinal. Morocco showed it in 2022 by becoming the first African team to reach a World Cup semifinal. Those were not accidents. They were examples of tournament logic. A team does not need to be the best in the world for 4 years. It needs to be extremely difficult to beat for 4 weeks. That is a different skill. Croatia had midfield intelligence, emotional endurance, and penalty shootout nerve. Morocco had defensive organization, speed and transition, and a collective belief that made every opponent uncomfortable. So when we talk about every team fighting for the World Cup, we also need to watch the second tier. Uruguay can be dangerous because CONMEBOL qualifying hardens teams. CONMEBOL is South America's qualification system, and it forces nations into repeated high-pressure matches against rivals who know each other deeply. Croatia can be dangerous because tournament experience compounds. Morocco can be dangerous because organization travels. Belgium, if balanced, can still punish teams with quality. Colombia, if sharp, can bring rhythm, aggression, and technical courage. The United States, Mexico, and Canada have the host factor, and hosting matters because travel, crowd energy, and familiarity can shift margins. But host advantage is not magic. It is logistics, less uncertainty, more support, more emotional fuel. Sometimes that helps a team play bigger than its ranking. Sometimes it becomes pressure wearing a home shirt. This is where FIFA's 2026 format changes the entire conversation. The World Cup expanded to 48 teams. That means more nations, more groups, more paths, and a larger knockout stage. Expansion sounds simple. More teams, more matches, more stories, but structurally, it changes what a contender has to survive. In the 32-team era, used from 1998 to 2022, the tournament had a cleaner rhythm. Group stage, round of 16, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. The 48-team format adds another layer of complexity. More teams can reach the knockout rounds. More third-place calculations can matter. More routes can become uneven. More favorites may face opponents with nothing to lose. That means depth becomes even more important. Not just star depth, recovery depth, travel depth, tactical depth, emotional depth. The best contender is not simply the one with the strongest starting 11. It is the one that can keep solving new versions of the same problem. Can you break a low block? Can you survive a pressing team? Can you defend crosses? Can you win penalties? Can you rotate without losing rhythm? Can you handle a match where the referee, the crowd, the pitch, and the opponent all make the game feel strange? That is why FIFA rankings help, but never fully explain the World Cup. FIFA rankings are a method for ordering national teams based on results and match weight. They give a useful signal of strength over time. But rankings cannot measure a perfect matchup. They cannot measure fear. They cannot measure whether a left back is exhausted after crossing a continent. They cannot measure whether a team suddenly believes. So here's the real contender map. Argentina are the champions of emotional survival. France are the empire of depth. Brazil are the nation of attacking solutions. England are the squad trying to turn almost into finally. Spain are the control machine searching for the final bite. Portugal are the talent puzzle that needs role clarity. Germany are the historical giant trying to make memory physical again. The Netherlands are the tactical nation chasing the missing ending. And the outsiders are the reminder that the World Cup is not a spreadsheet. It is a system under stress. This is why the phrase contender is more complicated than it sounds. A contender is not a team that can look good in a preview graphic. A contender is a team with a path to survive different kinds of pain. Argentina know the pain of carrying a crown. France know the pain of expectation. Brazil know the pain of history. England know the pain of waiting. Spain know the pain of needing beauty to become violence. Portugal know the pain of abundance. Germany know the pain of comparison with their own past. The Netherlands know the pain of being admired without being crowned. And the outsiders know the pain of being told the trophy belongs to someone else. That is what makes the World Cup different from every other football competition. The Champions League can tell you which clubs are strongest across the season. UEFA tournaments can tell you which European national teams are stable under pressure. CONMEBOL qualifying can tell you which South American teams have survived one of the harshest roads in football. But the World Cup combines all of it. It takes club form, national identity, tactical culture, travel, heat, pressure, politics, history, and luck, then compresses them into a few matches where one mistake can become permanent. That is why the favorite is never just the favorite. The favorite is a theory waiting to be tested. France are a theory about depth. Argentina are a theory about belief. Brazil are a theory about genius. England are a theory about finally. Spain are a theory about control. Portugal are a theory about choice. Germany are a theory about restoration. The Netherlands are a theory about completion. The outsiders are a theory about disruption. And every theory eventually meets a corner kick, a counterattack, a penalty shootout, a tired midfielder, a bad bounce, and a player who refuses to follow the script. So when you look at the World Cup contenders, do not only ask who has the biggest names, ask who has the clearest idea. Ask who can adapt when the first idea fails. Ask who has enough talent to punish a mistake, enough structure to avoid panic, enough depth to survive the schedule, and enough emotional control to keep playing when the match stops feeling normal. That is the real list, not just the names, the systems behind the names. Because most fans think a World Cup contender is just a team with famous players. But after you understand the tournament, you see it differently. A World Cup contender is a team that can carry its talent through chaos and still recognize itself at the end. So which contender do you trust most when the game stops being beautiful?